Welcome to Literacy Mindset, where education leaders from across the country share strategies for improving K-12 instruction today and preparing for the challenges of tomorrow. The stakes are high. Students are facing new academic demands, and educators are navigating an ever-changing educational landscape. Each episode, we explore the most effective literacy initiatives, innovative tools, and strategies that are reshaping education. Whether you're an educator looking to improve student outcomes or passionate about driving meaningful change in schools, the Literacy Mindset brings you the insights and strategies you need to stay ahead. This is where education leadership meets real-world impact.
All right, well, welcome back to another episode of the Literacy Mindset. I am really excited to have my guest today, Mr. Jamie Bente, Superintendent of Faribault Public Schools in Minnesota. Welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you, Jeff, so much for having me.
You bet. I am really excited. I am also excited that I learned how to pronounce the name Faribault. We had a bit of a phoneme lesson or phonetics lesson earlier as Jamie was explaining to me how to make sure you take off the T on the end and go there. So really excited that I'm in the insider group now, Faribault. Well, we talk a lot about literacy here, but I also want to make sure we get a good sense of who you are. So can you just tell us a little bit about your journey to Faribault and in the education space on your way to be a superintendent?
Yeah, so I commonly joke around the truth that I've held almost every position that there is in education. So
That's great.
when I graduated, my first teaching job was I taught two sections of German, a section of English, a section of school newspaper, a section of yearbook, and I coached, and I did all of that with a social studies license. So my first year of teaching was really drinking from the fire hose, and I would say multiple fire hoses, but it taught me a lot. And then I wasn't always full time, so I would fill in as a paraprofessional sub here and there. So I did that. And then I was a high school social studies teacher for many years. I decided to get into administration, and I was a dean of students for 3 years. I was then an assistant principal for 3 years, a high school principal for 6 years. And now this is my third year as a superintendent in Faribault. So I've kind of worked my way up through pretty much every position that there's available in the education field.
Excellent. That is almost all of them. I agree. And I love that your background is sort of in the secondary level, social studies, because as we talk more about literacy today, that will come into play because there are unique challenges as you think about how you establish a literacy culture, a literate culture, and the differences and nuances that come the elementary versus secondary level. So first, though, tell us a little bit more about Faribault. What are some of the dynamics there and structure of the system?
Yeah, Faribault is honestly probably one of the, if not the most unique district, I would say, in the nation.
Okay.
So we are a town of about 25,000 people, just a little bit under. We are about 45 minutes south of Minneapolis, St. Paul area. Very rural setting, but we have a very strong diversity piece to us. We are about a third white, a third black, with the vast majority of that being Somali. And we are about a third Hispanic as well. So we've got that uniqueness to us. Also in town, we have a private Christian school. We have 2 charter schools. I take that back. We have 3 charter schools. And we have a private, like it's called Shattuck St. Mary's. So it's kind of an elite school that has a lot of international students. So not only do we have a lot of diversity, but we have a lot of, we just have a lot of pressure on us because there's a lot of other places to go, a lot of competition for our students.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's going to be an interesting dynamic for us to get into because when you live and work in what is arguably a very rural setting, but you have urban dynamics, it can present, I'm sure, unique challenges and yet some also great opportunities. So excited to dive into some of
Yeah.
those in the show.
And you compound on that the diversity is solely within Faribault. So if you go to the surrounding communities that are around us, they don't have the diversity that we have. So it's solely with us. And you don't really see that again until you get up to the suburbs of Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Okay, yeah. So not a lot of peer level understanding across the rural communities there. Okay, great. Well, again, we talk literacy, so I usually frame this up with tell us a little bit about what literacy looks like in Faribault, and sort of how you've structured it today, either through the lens of your core and basal programs, or how you supplement and intervene on top of that.
Yeah, so literacy has really become a huge piece of what we do here in Faribault. We see it as one of our core components that if we're going to graduate successful students that either go on to college or go on to the military, or maybe they're going straight into the workforce, they need and have to have those literacy skills. So it is actually one of our district-wide goals is to read well by third grade, to be on track by third grade, because we know that that's kind of the point where if you're off track with reading by third grade, it's really difficult for you to catch up. You're really kind of stuck in that cycle of catching up for the rest of your educational career. Right. So it has been a huge focus for us. Our reading scores have not been great. We've looked at and said that about a third of our students are able to read at grade level. That is something that we want to make sure we focus on. We have put a lot of effort into it, as has the state. So the state of Minnesota passed a couple years ago what they call the science of reading. And they have basically rolled out and said, we're going to roll out a curriculums that you get to pick from, and programs that you can train your staff in, so that we're changing the dynamics of reading. We're getting back to more of a phonics approach, if I dare say, to reading, which to me made sense because that's how I learned how to read, was sitting down and sounding everything out. So for a lot of people that are my age or older, they were like, when did we ever go away from this?
This isn't how we do it.
Yeah, exactly. There was a lot of people that said, well, wait a second, why are we training people to do what we already do? And it was, no, actually, we changed this a long time ago. And I don't think anybody realized that we changed it a long time ago. So it has become a huge focus for us. And then honestly, with our demographics and with our diversity, a lot of our Hispanic students and many of our Somali students, English is still not the language that's spoken at home. So they come to us with, not only struggles in English, but also struggles in their native language, the language that's spoken at home. So they're almost not literate in either language when they come to us. So that in itself creates a huge kind of chasm to jump with as well. So
yeah, I can see that being a complicating factor. So in the remind us of your grades. You got 3 elementary schools, a junior high, and a high school. Is that correct?
Yeah. So right now we have 3 pre-K through 5th grade buildings. A middle school, a high school, and then an offsite area learning center, an ALC.
Excellent. And when you think about curriculum and curriculum decisions, do those get made centrally at central office, or do they get pushed out?
We're in the process now of actually rebuilding a lot of our systems, and we haven't had for a long time any kind of district-wide systems. So where we have had in the distant past 15 or more years ago, where there was a district-wide curriculum, that kind of when we went through a lot of our financial struggles, district curriculum unfortunately gets put on the back burner. It's, well, we don't have the money to buy that this year, we'll look at next year. So you do that for a dozen to 15 years. And what happens is your curriculum kind of gets broken up across the buildings, and as new people come in, they kind of bring their pieces. So we have had kind of a broken curriculum across our district that we're actually unifying right now. So it is difficult, focusing on how to get everyone kind of back on the same page, and making sure that when all of the students arrive in 6th grade at our middle school, that they've had the same education and the same understandings coming from 3 different elementary schools.
Right. Okay. Excellent. And when maybe as you think about the supplemental or intervention side of that, let's talk about that for a second. Do you use a specific framework for intervention? How do you make decisions when things don't go maybe as planned
Yeah.
and intervention starts to come up?
Yeah. So at the building level, so let's just take one of our elementaries, for example. At the building level, they have they institute what's known as win time, what I need. And it's focused strictly on reading. And it's where is the student at in reading. So they're broken up, and every day they have win time. They have a 25-minute block every day of win time, in which what is in its individual interventions for the students. So it's not individual meetings, but it's, hey, here are these 4 to 5 students that all have the same need. So they will go with this person and work on this need in literacy or in reading. And likewise, you'll have those broken up so that, as that student improves, then it's, okay, what is the next thing that we need to tackle with them? And we're constantly going through individualizing the approach for each student and what does that student need to get better. Very time consuming, but it is very much focused on personalized learning. And we are huge here on personalized growth. As being able to see, when we get students, many times we'll get students, if we get a student at the 5th or 6th or 7th grade level, it's not uncommon for them to say, I haven't been in school for 3 or 4 years. So we're able to say, okay, we're bringing in an 8th grader that maybe has a 2nd grade reading level. What do we need now to do to get this student ready in the next year and a half so that they can succeed in high school? Right. Because as a secondary teacher, and I don't know if I'm stealing some of your thunder for later, but as a secondary teacher, I understood reading as you read to learn. Right. And it wasn't until really I
need to read it.
Yeah, exactly. You read to learn. And so I wasn't trained in how to teach a student how to read. That wasn't what we, us social studies teachers were trained in, so back in the 90s when I was in college. So the 1900s, I should say, back in the 1900s when I was in college. Right. So my understanding of reading was you read to learn, where in the elementary, it's you learn to read. And it's just a very different understanding and idea. And it's something that I've had to learn much more about, not only becoming a high school principal, but then becoming a superintendent to oversee a district. It's a fundamental change in mindset.
Yeah, well, let's stay on that. Let's pull on that thread for a second, knowing what you know, and also experiencing the level of uniqueness that you have. You probably have plenty of 8th graders that need phonics skills development. How do you support teachers in Faribault to be able to better support that student, or what does the intervention look like at that level?
Yeah, so it's we've kind of said there's no need to reinvent the wheel here. We are really good at meeting our students where they are and getting them to the next level or where they need to be. We do the exact same thing with our teachers. What is it that you know, and what is it that you need help with? And what is it that you need so that you can pass it on and our students can be successful? So really, we've done the best we can at personalizing our professional development as well. Okay. So that, we might have a teacher over here that's really good at growing students in reading. So, all right, let's get you to focus with some of these other teachers that struggle with that. So it has been one of those pieces where it's first of all getting people to understand what are their strengths and what are their growth areas, and then saying, okay, let's help you with your growth areas, but let's also capitalize off your strengths so that you can help others that your strength is their growth area. So it's kind of this idea of that you can be the mentor and the mentee at the same time.
Got it. And I mean, as you think about percentages of time, how often is it, oh, hey, since this other teacher knows how to teach phonics well, let's let her do the teaching, or how much of it is, well, let's have her teach him how to teach phonics? How does that break down?
Well, you kind of said the 4-letter word there in education: time. Or, because honestly, that's the biggest struggle that we have. What don't we have enough of? It's easy for me to say money. It's more important for me to say time. That is the piece. So we always want to make sure that the time that we do have, we're focusing as much as we can on getting that time into the classroom. Right. So we instituted about 2 years ago, changed up our calendar so that we have now monthly days where staff are able to get together. They're able to get together with their administrators. They're able to get together with some district professional development if needed, and they're able to get together with each other around those mentor and mentee pieces, work in their PLCs, focus on some common planning time. So we instituted that a couple years ago, and that has been much more successful. Before that, we had a day at workshop, we had a day in November, and we had a day in April. And by the time you got to April, people said, I don't even remember November, let alone what we talked about. So now it's monthly, and we're able to say, okay, here's what we're doing this month, and here's what you need to prepare for next month, so that when we come in, we use our time as efficiently as possible and are able to hit the ground running.
Oh, that's really good. Let's drill in just a little bit on something you said earlier. You talked about it in win time and personalized learning. You sort of mentioned that maybe 4 or 5 students are struggling with the same thing. So let's pull those together. How do you determine that? Is there a methodology that you use?
Yeah, so we actually have win time teams that are at our elementary, and they're looking at standardized test scores. They're looking at, we give fast bridge testing here, which really breaks down into the strands. The piece that I love about fast bridge is not only does it give you the strands that the student is struggling in, but then it actually gives you what the intervention should be. Here are a couple of examples of a lesson that will help. So we're able to quickly put together, hey, like I said, these 3 students, these 5 students are all struggling with the same strand under this broader topic. Here's an intervention. Then it makes it a lot easier for us to just kind of honestly do the management piece of saying, we're going to put these 5 together with this teacher, and here's the intervention for them, and work on those. So being able to utilize those data points, being able to, and most importantly, individualize the data. So it's not just an aggregate big clump of data that says our students. It says, no, Billy this, Susie that, Mohammed this, Jose that. We're able to really say, this is what this student needs. And guess what? Mohammed and Jose have the exact same needs. So we're going to put them together with this teacher, with this intervention.
Got it. So it's usually using your benchmarking system with FastBridge in this case that you do 3 times a year, and then you kind of pull that data out, and teachers are working with that over each chunk of time, basically.
Yep, exactly. And then there's those little check-in assessments as well to say, does this student still need this intervention, or should we move them on to the next piece in their benchmarking? So
okay, excellent. I love that was one of the most effective use of grabbing a name out of thin air and keeping you across the demographics of which you serve. So well done there. But let's speak to that a little bit. You have probably tremendous diversity when it comes to the challenges that arise from the socioeconomic diversity that you have in Faribault. You mentioned to me in our pre-production that that you've made a pretty big emphasis to create community schools to kind of help as you think about the outside of the school walls influences that may affect a student's reading journey. Kind of talk a little bit about that and how you think that helps bridge the gap.
Yeah, so it's one of those pieces that we always want to drill down when we're talking about our diversity. What is it that we're specifically talking about? Are we talking about language? Are we talking about skin color? Are we talking about time in district? Are we talking about socioeconomic pieces? Because those are all pieces that play into account here on what are the needs of our students, what are the needs of our families, and then what are the needs of our community. So it really is our community schools we've designed. And you and I actually had a conversation beforehand that you were thinking community school as in, oh, my student can walk there. And here in Minnesota, we say, no, those are neighborhood schools. Right. Community schools are before and after school programming that really not only it can be tutoring, it can be social skills, it can be emotional pieces, it can be follow up to the day. And there's a combination of the people that do community school are in direct contact with the teachers. So the teacher's able to walk down and say, guess what? I know you have this student in community school. This is an area that they're struggling with in my class. So it's able to be a continuation of the school day for some of them. But beyond that, we also know that there's a huge need just outside of the academic piece of it. Students that need dental care, students that need medical appointments, students that need, perhaps therapy or counseling sessions. And those are all students that have food insecurities or families that have food insecurities at home. That is all part of the community school model. So you're able to say, hey, I understand that, your child told us that they're toothaches. And I understand that you're not either in the financial capability to get them in to see a dentist, or maybe it's just that, you don't know how to do it. So we're going to bring a dentist in and they're going to actually take care of it. Are you okay with that? And the parents love it, and it even goes down to sports physicals before seasons start. Right. Is being, that's a huge burden on all of our families, and we all know what it's like it takes 30 days to, if you're lucky, to get in to see a doctor now. So for us to be able to bring one in and say, yep, we're going to run as many students as we can through sports physicals. The big piece for me is when I walk into these and I see parents come in like 4:30-ish in the afternoon, and they come in to pick up their child, and they're able to go sit down with their child and have a meal together that's provided. And that it just takes that, it takes that burden and that concern away from them, so that they can, have one less thing to worry about that evening, and be able to sit there and have a meal and talk to their child about, how did your day go? What did you learn today? It's just very powerful.
It seems to me that, as you just described, the challenge of time, at some level, the community school effort is a way to give more time. Right now, you have more time to potentially spend on skill development, or less time away from school to do other things that may be required. I think that's a great way to try and introduce more time into the system.
Yeah, it is. The fear factor in it is that these are all grant funded. These are not things that we would be able to pay for out of our general fund. So they are state grants, they are federal grants, they are pieces like that we've been able to access to have this. And, it's been an absolute blessing for our community, but it's this understanding of that we do have to continue to understand that this is grant funding, Yeah.
And funding is a delicate topic in our world always. There's probably two very distinct arguments that we could make. One is that there's never enough money, right? There's always something more that we could do with more money. And it's not just about the money. There are other things that we have to do to figure this out. But I think your understanding seems to me of what the nuances are that can create settings of challenging learning environments that are separate from simply a skill deficit or some gap, in that it might not be that easy for me to learn how to read if I have throbbing pain in my mouth, or if I am so hungry that I can't think about the words on the page. So I love that you guys are really addressing that, and the funding piece aside, I think it's a really important part of it.
Yeah, we've taken that exactly what you said there, Jeff, is the fact that a student is going to struggle at best to learn if they have a toothache. Those of us that have had a toothache before realize that's the only thing on your mind at that point, is how bad your tooth hurts. If you're hungry, I know what I'm like when I'm hungry. My staff knows what I'm like when I'm hungry. And they say, maybe you should go get some lunch, So
Snickers has captured that pretty well in those commercials for sure.
if you ask some of the people around me, I could star in a Snickers commercial. Yes.
It's great.
But yeah, I mean, it's meeting what are the needs of our students outside of academics that have to be filled before we can expect them to learn. And getting people to understanding and like you said, putting then the pieces in place so that a student doesn't come to us hungry, so that a student doesn't come to us with, we've been blessed here in Minnesota that we've had free breakfast for a while. We now have free lunch for everyone. So there's, and for a lot of our students, it's sad to say, but we are their source of breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. But the good thing to say is we are their source of breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. And you can look at it two different ways. Right. How you look at that really, I think, is the mindset on, of course, we're going to feed a kid. I never thought of it before. Even as a kid, I didn't think of it when I, had a packed lunch. But right. the more I think about it, if we're requiring students to be here, of course we're going to feed them. Why wouldn't we? If I said I'm going to have you, Jeff, we're going to be in a meeting all day long and I'm not going to provide you lunch, you'd kind of be like,
go well.
that you'd be kind of like, well, that's kind of rude, So I think a lot of that is a mind shift change for some of us. But once we're able to do it, then we can see the child and see the needs that the child has and understand better than the academic needs of the child. Right. Is why was this student struggling to read? Oh, because of this. So let's fix this first, and then we can focus on the academic pieces of it. So
no, I love that. I love that, and it really helps define the construct of equity. Let's stay there for a second too, because technology is another place where equity comes up quite a bit. Sounds like you guys have done quite a bit to try and create opportunity for device access. Tell us a little bit about what does it look like?
Yeah, so we are a 1-to-1 iPad district. So all of our students have iPads. At the elementary level, they don't take them home. They're more classroom sets. At the middle school level, they have them, but they also don't take them home. They'll take them home, like if we think we're going to have a project, or if they need to check one out, or if we're going to potentially poor weather is coming and we have to do a learn from home day. We don't do snow days anymore. We do learn from home days. All right. We call them our Falcon Flex days. And I got a lot of flack for that. There's no more snow days. There's, hey, you've got a device.
Why do you need snow days?
Right. So, and then
we learned in COVID that that's not what we want it to be, but that we can make the most out of days like that now. So that kudos to you for doing that, actually.
Yeah, that we can do it. You're right. Exactly. That there were some bright spots in COVID where we learned a lot about what we can do if we push ourselves outside of our comfort zone, and all of a sudden we learn, hey, there's something I can do that I wasn't ever comfortable trying before.
Yeah, you got to take the bright side.
Yeah. So for the technology side of it, it's, for me, and like I said, we've been blessed, is that it's not necessarily about the devices or the access anymore. When you come and register with us, I say, fill out this form and here's your iPad, and you think about it. I mean, for some of our students, I've just given them access to the world, that they may have never had before. Right. And so for them, then it becomes the responsible teaching of how to use an iPad and what to use it for. So there's just a lot of different ways that you can go with that, but those are the main pieces there.
Okay. That's great. What, every time I talk about technology, especially at superintendent level, I'm intrigued at frameworks or policies around personal device use. And do you see distractions, and how do you limit those distractions? Have you approached that from a policy standpoint? Do you approach it from a education standpoint? How do you guys deal with personal device distraction?
Nope, we don't have any problems with that. Next question. No.
Well played.
No, actually, the state of Minnesota came out and in their infinite wisdom, and I hope that they don't hear this, but they said every district by March of this year has to have a cell phone policy.
Got it.
It doesn't say what it has to be, but that you have to have a cell phone policy.
You just have to have it at a policy level.
You just have to have a policy, right? So we actually jumped out ahead of that last summer and put together that we have a cell phone policy. And that is, we follow the Away for the Day model. So if you go and you Google Away for the Day, they've got a website. They've got a lovely system of being able to say, hey, here's what we think you should do. And we follow that. So personal devices are away for the day. And it's easy for us to say that because I've given you an iPad. Why do you need your cell phone if I've given you an iPad? And they'll say, well, at the high school level, especially in middle school, well, Snapchat's not on my iPad. I know. Right.
We're okay with that.
Yeah. So it is that it's more of a push to that responsibility piece of, not only that, but trying to educate them in time management. If you're sitting there scrolling through Facebook, scrolling through Instagram, scrolling through Snapchat, and all of a sudden you look up and you've just missed maybe 3/4 of the lesson in front of you, right, because your mind was totally 100% in something else. We can say that we multitask. Very, very, very few of us actually can, so it's really teaching our students proper use and our adults, because when we put this in, I said, this goes for everybody. I said, so when I'm walking through the hallway of the high school and my phone rings, I got to step into an office and take the phone call. And I'm not pulling my phone out in the hallway or when I'm in a classroom and looking at a text, or I have to follow it too, so it's the expectation for all adults and students that come into our building. And I will say, we have been far more successful with this plan than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be much larger of an issue. And honestly, it hasn't been for us. I know districts that it has been in Minnesota that they've really struggled with it. But we, knock on wood, haven't. It's just kind of been that expectation, and it's worked out quite well for us.
That's great to hear. And I love the different policies, because there are a lot of different ways to approach it, and it really needs to be something that works for you and your district. It sounds like you guys have really gotten to something there. Well, we've had a lot of good conversation here. Really excited about the things that you are doing in Faribault. Let's end with this last question for you. Open up that crystal ball, the Jamie Bente, look into the future. What does the world of education look like? Talk to us just about what you see, 5 to 10 years from now, either trends that you're seeing right now that you think are going to absolutely stay strong, or maybe some things that you're like, I hope this isn't here in 10 years. And that would be a good thing.
If social media could go away, that would be great. No, I know that's not going to happen, but, this is a really interesting and difficult question, because there's a million different ways that we could go.
Right.
I will tell you a personal experience that I had. Okay. I have 3 boys. My youngest is 12. Okay. And he's had this VR set, and he's standing in our living room and he's dancing around, interacting with a world that none of us see. So it was Sunday night, and I said, let me try this. Like, I have never put one of these on my head before. Let me try this. Okay. And I put it on, and once my body got acclimated to what was going on, or what it sensed was going on, right. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Right. Like, I don't know if you've ever put one on before and interacted like in a game setting, because he plays these games. Right. And I was just like, I now have a much better understanding why you want to do this versus learn.
Yeah, sit in the classroom. Anything else, right?
Right. So definitely in the next, and he's 12. So he's in 7th grade. He's coming. He's coming to the middle schools. He's coming to the high schools. And they better be ready for him. They better be able to motivate and engage him in the way that that VR headset can. So what does that exactly look like? I don't know. And if I did know, I'd be out on the circuit selling it right now, making lots of money. Right? So, but we've got to figure out how we take that motivation, that desire, and get it into the classroom. And maybe it is through the devices, and I know they're being used, but we got to be able to infuse that into our teaching, because that honestly is the next piece of it, is how do we get our students to interact with us and engage with us the way they are with these other pieces that are out there. So that's my crystal ball. I don't have the answers. I just have more questions.
I love it. And sometimes that's all it is. It's not really about predicting the future. It's about understanding what's happening today and where that might take us and being prepared for it. So, hey, I've really appreciated the conversation. It's been great to talk about all things, whether it's from the community schools effort that you've been doing or the way that you're attempting to personalize learning. We've learned a lot today, and I've appreciated having you on the show. Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in. If you found today's conversation insightful, be sure to subscribe to Literacy Mindset. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube for updates, resources, and to join the conversation. Have a topic you'd like us to explore? Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time.